Hello DMs, welcome back to the Master of Dungeons. In today's video we take a look at the rivals from Call of the Netherdeep, particularly their tier 3 stat blocks. This is nearly my last video on this amazing module. I've had great fun running this adventure, and these NPCs are some of the most fun I've used in a setting. So the rivals can really appear anywhere you wish in the Netherdeep, but I chose to keep them at a distance, taunting the party into the meeting inside the Heart of Despair. When the fight happened, I'd already been planning it, as I knew my players would too, for their own personal tactics. It was a long time coming after they had stolen the Jewel of Three Pairs in Chapter 3, and they definitely wanted revenge. When battle opens, I've already got Maggie's tactical readiness rolled, giving me advantage on initiatives, and oh boy were they good. I had a 24 for Irvin, 22 for Io, 20 for Dermot, 18 for Galceride, and a 15 for Maggie. With a Chronology Wizard, Swashbuckler Rogue, and a Barbarian that gets advantage on initiative in my players group, I needed every advantage I could get. Combat begins and Irvin goes first. We're in the Netherdeep, so it's all on their swim speeds, which is great as Irvin has a 40 foot. It gets me right in the thick of it, and immediately he gets one poison dagger attack and 2 Ruidium short swords. Unfortunately, that's all he really gets. The 3 attacks, he's a bit of a blunt weapon, so I really focused on the Barbarian with 3 attacks, with some decent damage before she could rage. Probably a safe bet if the Barbarian has also done Reckless to give you some nice taste advantage. Otherwise, if they'd have had the Rogue a bit closer, or if they had a Monk in the party, that's who I would have targeted to knock him out as quickly as possible. Next I had Io. Before combat, Galceride had already cast Longstrider on her almost now before the extra movement. She has 40 feet at swim speed, getting her right in the thick of it too. I jumped straight after the party paladin, wanting to spread the damage and force my players to spread their focuses too. I immediately used reposition to move Maggie, as she's my slowest member of the rivals, to get her up to the fore. If my players were using significant elemental damage, I would have used protection from energy immediately. And if she was ever restrained, freedom of movement, it was easy enough to get her out of that. But otherwise, it was just pure attacks. Her other spells were pretty useless for a combat situation, so I just ignored them. After Io, it was Dermot's turn for me. I had to move up to get in range and immediately throw a Searing Smite at the ranger, blinding him. I didn't use Bless because I was going to throw it on Io, Irvin and Maggie, but unfortunately my party ingeniously trapped these 3 behind a wall of force, keeping them out of the combat for quite some time. I was also saving Cure Wounds for anyone who needed it, which also didn't happen as the Rogue did 66 points of damage to him in a single turn, killing my Dermot, who was the first of the rivals to fall. For Galceride, I kept him way at the back, and turn 1 he dropped Gravity Rend in as many clustered players as I could get, doing some nice damage to the Ranger, and it would have been good on the Wizard, but during the adventure the party found a Brooch of Shielding, which gave her resistance to force damage, but trying to restrain the back line is definitely your best choice. After the wall of force dropped, trapping Maggie, Irvin and Io, my players focused on Galceride and Dermot, with the Barbarian using her 40 foot at swim speed to dive straight after Galceride. After her first attack, I had him use his reaction to distort gravity. I wasn't too worried about the damage, but floating 20 feet in the air was spectacular, as she'd used her full move to get to him, so didn't have enough swim to swim up and get her second attack, which turned out to be a crit. After that, I did drain potential until I was able to get another Gravity Rend, which when the Wizard and Ranger were next to each other, I did, restraining them. And because the Wizard had a wall of force, cutting my NPCs in half, I needed that dropped as soon as possible. Last I had Maggie. Outside of her tactical readiness, she's a blunt instrument. Only a couple of great weapon attacks. I used her rally on Irvin immediately, as he'd been the first person to take damage, so it kept him in the fight a bit longer, which I suggested is your best choice. Whoever takes the first amount of damage, get her to just bolster that a little bit. Then I had just had her attack whoever was next to her. If I could, I would have had her knock someone and then, attack someone, and then knock them prone and have either Irvin or Io take advantage of it. But with the wall of force, it just totally threw everything into a bit of a chaotic scramble once they were let out. But let me be clear, this was not an easy fight for my players. The wizard was knocked unconscious, and 3 out of the 4 remaining were down to low health, down towards the 10s. It was only healing magic and potions that kept him in the fight. It was an amazing fight, and I really look forward to them meeting Elixir next Thursday and finishing Call of the Netherdeep. Anyway, this has been my look at the rivals from Call of the Netherdeep and their final Tier 3 stat blocks. Hope this has given you some ideas for your combat, and please drop me a comment below and let me know how your combat goes, and if you do anything different to what I did. Until next time, happy hunting.